Number 44 to 40, the Unplayable Games. What better way to start a ranking than with 5 games that can't be ranked? You had one job, man. 5 of the mobile games have been lost to time outside of these screenshots and footage. Luckily, we don't seem to be missing out on much. Both Pro Skater 4 games and Underground 2 seem to play like the other mobile entries we'll be covering soon. Downhill Jam, while really impressive for a mobile game at the time, is fundamentally a discount version of a discount game. And Shred Session, which received a limited release in some regions, was received so badly the publishers thought, well fuck this, it's an endless runner where you do tricks to fill a meter, and if the meter empties then the game ends. Just in case the gameplay wasn't already lacking enough depth for you, you have a limited set of tricks that earn less points as you go on, and the only way to get new tricks is to buy them with real money. So yeah, fuck this game. Number 39, the Underground 2 promotional flash game. Underground 2 received an official flash game to promote it. This game was so interesting, I actually got a poster of it in my bedroom. It's an endless runner, where you spray graffiti while dodging cars, avoiding people, and unsuccessfully jumping over my last mixtape. Its gameplay loop is so shallow it becomes monotonous in 30 seconds. 9 times out of 10 your run will end because the game puts you in a situation where you die no matter what you do, and the graffitiing is accompanied by this obnoxious sound that is really loud and annoying, and shut the fuck up! I have dishonored my family just by playing this. Avoid it at all costs. Number 38, Project 8 on mobile. On console, Project 8 flipped the Tony Hawk formula on its head. It's grittier, had a stronger sense of realism, and featured urban environments to reflect the more grounded focus of the game's vision. So, how did they translate that to mobile? Here's a rhythm game with the backdrop of a gay pride street gang of shapes. You play as... well, never mind, all our art budget went into the background, but how about that square, yo? This game is ass. One of the whole points of the series is how the movement mechanics and level design grant the player creativity and freedom, as a reflection of the creativity and freedom skate culture represents. So, a game where you just follow instructions completely misses the point to me. Even ignoring that, it's just void of depth and fun, honestly. Number 37, Proving Ground on mobile. Existence is agony! At first glance, this seems to be a copy and paste of the game that would have been better off being a copy and paste. However, this actually addresses some of the issues I had with it. Kind of. You're now able to transition between multiple paths, still can't say it, and there's now flatland tricks you have to balance. There's also actual objectives like skate letters, plus the discount art students project background has been replaced with actual fitting imagery. So this is still a quick time event mess that lacks everything that makes the series so fun, but it's a step forward, I guess. It's like we've stepped out of dog shit into goldfish shit. A quote from Shakespeare that sums up these games really well. Number 36, Vert. Alright, so... okay, cool. Yeah, nice. This is it, isn't it? This is the game. Man, I gotta be honest, What? What the fuck is this? What? Oh shit! Vert is a missed opportunity. The animations and these weird ass cutaways feature some of the most distinct personality of the entire series, yet they don't translate this into the shallow and repetitive gameplay. Furthermore, this one redeeming factor actually becomes annoying after a while, because once their novelty wears off they just disrupt the game's flow. So all things considered, you're left with an experience that is, well, this is a list of everything a girl has ever called me. Pick one and that's what this game is. Number 35, Motion. You know how one of the reasons everyone loves the Tony Hawk series is because of its fantastic movement mechanics? Well, how about this? Does this. In Motion, you move by rotating the Nintendo DS, which is even worse than it sounds. It's most problematic in these missions where you need to jump from rail to rail, which can be near impossible because you have no control over your jumps. Any progress just feels like luck. But wait, by a divine miracle, I've kind of got used to the controls. Fear not, my dude, because an old friend has returned to make sure you never get any value from this game. At best, the levels are uninspired trash, and at worst, they just feel unfinished. For example, Tokyo just has no objects to skate on. It feels like the developers made the general outline of the level, looked at the clock and saw it was 5 PM and thought, well, we'll just finish this in the morning I guess, only to wake up to a call from an Activision executive saying, hey guys, congrats on the launch of your game. And in the end they just gave up on skateboarding altogether and made snowboarding missions, the penultimate letter of the alphabet. This is nothing but an unplayable tech demo. Number 34, Pro Skater on Game Boy Color. The GBC version of Pro Skater is a top-down racing game, where you win by getting the most points based on tricks and your final position. I gotta say, in theory, this sounds like a lot of... What the hell was that? Yeah, as I was saying, I think this format has a lot of... What? Am I having a stroke? What is this? Yeah, every time you do a trick in this game, you don't see an in-game animation, the game stops and shows you an image of the move. Every single time. And they didn't even do the image as well. This is Kareem Campbell doing a trick. Do you see the issue? Yeah, they got his t-shirt completely wrong. So, for a non-disruptive experience, you can only do grinds. Despite this, it's fairly challenging, so it actually kept me engaged. Here I am 10 minutes into the game, and that's it, I've beat the game. So, if you're waiting on a bus stop and only have a Game Boy Color on you, you might get some value from this, but if you're at a point in your life where you only have a Game Boy Color on you, you'd be better off just selling the game for crack and leaving this world in style. Number 33, American Wasteland on mobile. This is easily one of the best of the flip phone games. Many of the missions entail you getting collectibles in the open world, so it actually translates the explorative element of the main entry as well. I'm not advising you run out and get a weapon of mass destruction to play this, as there's barely any tricks, so any actual skateboarding sucks ass, but as someone who's sexually attracted to collectathons, this game spoke to me. However, there's one flip phone game that just edged it out for me. Number 32, Underground on mobile. This is like American Wasteland but with better objectives. For example, instead of showing how much of an extreme skate punk you are by picking up cans people have littered, you put up posters by finding a way up to the roof of a train and then platforming your way across the moving train and subway structures. Much more inspired design. So, if your grandmother chokes on her prescription pills and dies, causing you to inherit the flip phone she still used, this is the Tony Hawk game I would recommend for it. Number 31, Pro Skater 2 on Game Boy Color. The GBC version of Pro Skater 2 accurately translates the structure of the main version to a side-scrolling and top-down format, including the strong element of exploration. Unfortunately, everything else is really weak. The trick options are limited, with not even the manual making it in. That's the whole point of the game, dude. There's way less goals, and the goals that are there are uninspired. Grinding every taxi that's right next to each other, with a grind function that requires pinpoint accuracy, with an ollie that is bigger than my future, is not a fun time on any level. On the bright side, this was made by the same company that made the first Pro Skater on Color, so seeing them go from this to this is one hell of an anime redemption arc. Number 30, Pro Skater 3 on Game Boy Color. This version is a side-scroller where you can transition to new paths. Effectively merging the side-scroller and top-down styles of the previous entry. I do not like this, because it makes combo lines so linear and restrictive. This is made worse by the fact that the game is, to put it as academically as possible, hard as fuck. The scores you have to reach are insane. I'd usually love this level of challenge, but here it feels like it stems from bad design rather than being by design. I know, blame the game, but I feel this because due to the on-rail structure, you basically just find one spot and then abuse it, because nothing else is viable, really lacking level design with none of that room for creativity that defines the good entries. Outside of this though, it's an improvement. The addition of the manual and smoother controls and animations makes skateboarding much deeper, and the levels are bigger and more complex, making the exploration based goals more interesting despite the movement restrictions. Number 29, Skate Jam. I was going to do this section as a parody trailer, as a joke about this game's excessive monetization. However, the more I play this, the more I realise watching the ads is one of the more fun parts of the experience. The controls are the gaming equivalent of late stage AIDS. Did you know flicking the analog stick up and down starts a manual? Well, this game doesn't. Sometimes at least. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Fuck me, right? When it does work, balancing it and the grinds is horrendous, because it starts off normal and then just flies in one direction, like a kid being decked by a race car. And don't think those microtransactions get off the hook. You know how Tony Hawk is in the title, and because he's in the title, is the default skater in the other games, mostly? Well, here, you have to pay £9.50 to unlock him. I don't know exactly what that is in yeehaw currency, but I know it's at least $10. $10 for one character, you scummy cunt. But maybe the levels and intricate physics needed for a Tony Hawk game are expensive to make, so they needed a way to recoup the costs, you may say. Nope, because everything in this game is just copy and pasted from their Skateboard Party series. The exact same levels, the exact same gameplay, everything but this $10 turd. What the fuck did they do to your face, Tony? This is a bigger cash grab than Pro Skater 5, and an even bigger piece of shit than Pro Skater 5. That core Pro Skater format is here, which even at its absolute worst is still more addictive than the other crap we've seen so far, which is why it's made it this far, but make no mistakes, this is an atrocious excuse for a game. Number 28, Downhill Jam on Game Boy Advance. Honestly, I went into this with very low expectations. I mean, look at this, I feel like I just had a stroke while having a car accident. But remember, this is on the GBA, so a fully 3D game like this is actually a huge technical achievement. Even ignoring that, I just had a ton of fun with this. Like the main versions, this is a racing game. The controls are a good recreation of the regular controls. The grind especially feels so nice, and I actually found the gameplay a solid challenge. If you're not keeping a consistent boost via tricks, you will struggle to keep up, so that risk versus reward dynamic of fitting in tricks without losing your momentum is captured perfectly here. Unfortunately, the technological limitations do stop this from getting any higher. Level design is quite simple, there's less tricks than many of the other entries, and there's a lack of variety that's much needed in these type of games, so it becomes repetitive pretty fast. But overall, I have nothing but good things to say about this game, other than the list of bad things I just said. Number 27, Ride. You know how everyone hated Motion because of its awful motion controls, hence implying they should never do this again? Well, Activision remain dedicated to their mantra. Ride is played entirely with a motion controlled skateboard controller. You know how Skate Jam would just register on my manuals whenever it felt like? Well, Ride was doing it years before it was cool, except with every move in the game. Even when they work, this is still a miserable time because of how uninspired everything is. Most of the missions are just do these tricks and or move in this specific way. But hey, maybe this is like Vert, where the gameplay is nothing special but it at least has a strong personality.
Hey man, I'll meet you down Lower Wacker Drive. Let's skate. Hey, just got a text. Mike D's waiting for you in New York.
Blink twice if you have a gun to your head. Well, the creator skater, maybe that's the game's redeeming Honestly, there is an inherent novelty to playing Tony Hawk on an actual skateboard, so that novelty factor did get something out of this game for me, but once that novelty wears off, you're left with a painfully mediocre experience. Number 26, Shred. Credit where credit is due. While Activision lack in basic listening skills, they more than make up for in persistence. And I guess it's paying off because each motion game is better than the last. If they just do this for another 20 years, they'll have a good game. But yeah, this is the exact same as Ride, except things work slightly more this time. They've also improved the creator skater by completely removing it. But there's gotta be some notable improvement, right? Oh, those lifeless cutscenes, maybe they're improved.
It's gotta be in here somewhere. What to do when a player is just too awesome for words.
Seriously, that was awesome. Really awesome.
Way to wild out! Yeah! I'm wilding out, you know what I'm saying?
I take back everything I ever said about you. At least they didn't include snowboarding levels like Motion. On the bright side, this is it, right? The games can only get better from here. Number 25. Alright, what is up guys? I have just landed in Switzerland. It is a gorgeous day to fucking die. Pro Skater 5 feels like it was made by someone who's read reviews of the Tony Hawk games but never actually played one. They like the quick and simple gameplay? Well, let's push beach balls out of swimming pools, yeah! They like the ability to create unrealistic characters? Well, look at this comically mismatched pairing. We're so quirky and niche, we're not like other game studios. You grind by dropping down and pressing triangle? Well, get this. You press triangle to drop down. That'll never disrupt the flow of the gameplay, mess up combos, fuck up the grind mechanic, completely fucking miss the point of the fucking. I have enough issues with this game to make a series out of it, but since my euthanasia room is number 27, I'll just list 27 of them on the screen now. I will say, this is no longer the unplayable mess most people know it as, and those core controls and mechanics are still here, which, even when they're completely butchered, are still more fun than the awkward, unsatisfying and or linear variants we've seen so far, but when my highest praise is you can play it, that tells you everything you need to know about this game. Number 24, American Skateland on Game Boy Advance. As you'll see soon, most of Vicarious Vision's GBA entries are faithful adaptations of the main versions, with some fitting changes that also make them stand out. This was their final one and their worst one. The levels are way too big, meaning there's so many stretches with just nothing to skate on. Plus, so many of the missions are fetch quests, many of which revolving around you getting food for someone. How do we go from being rebel punks vandalizing and stealing city property in the main version to politely delivering food for $10? Even the flip phone version featured a bank heist, fuck your donut. Number 23, Downhill Jam. Pro Skater was originally going to be entirely downhill levels, with the only normal skating coming from a small skate park at the end of each stage. However, playtesters noted the regular skating was more fun, which is why the gameplay is the flatland open style we know and love today. So anyway, here's Downhill Jam, a game with nothing but downhill levels. Fuck those bitches! So, to the surprise of no one but Activision apparently, this game is pretty average. Honestly, there's a lot of promise here. Racing is a logical match for a series lauded for its movement mechanics, trying to carry a combo without losing your momentum is a solid risk versus reward dynamic, and the varied missions do a good job testing your range of skills. However, I just couldn't get into it, because it has none of what makes the series captivating. The linear levels feature almost no exploration, the strategy of finding lines or figuring out how to reach a collectible is almost non-existent due to more mindless goals getting a priority, and that core gameplay loop just lacks the depth and replay value of the main entries, since the learning curve is mostly just memorizing level layouts. It fails to capture the magic of the regular games or evolve it in an interesting way. Number 22, Downhill Jam on Nintendo Wii and PlayStation 2. The console version of Downhill Jam is very similar to the DS version, however it's technically a different game, so by the divine law of OCD, it gets its own spot. It has slightly better physics, better graphics, a few new areas like this jump, which is sure good for you, and yeah, that's all I have to say, to be honest. It's the greatest polished turd I've ever played. Oh, and there are a bunch of fictional characters exclusive to this version. Let's see what they have to say.
Wait, Tony Hawk is a dude? I thought he was just like a company or something.
Well, he does own a company.
Why would I be scared of him then? Just because he owns a company? That ain't scary.
Tony Hawk is pretty cute for an older ex-skater.
He's not that old, and he's not an ex-skater either.
But you do think he's cute, huh?
Number 21, Pro Skater HD. This is a remake of some of the content from Pro Skater 1 and 2. Unfortunately, that's where the pros for this game ends, because it doesn't seem to know what it wants to be. It fails as a remake because the physics are floaty and, like my ex-girlfriend, unfaithful to the OG, and it fails as an update because it lacks the improvements of the sequels, like the revert and the removal of the unnecessary big drop feature. So overall, this is the most relatable Tony Hawk game because, like me, it just kind of exists and is a blander version of its father. Number 20, Underground 2 on Game Boy Advance. Someone, at some point in time, looked at the Tony Hawk games and thought, you know what that needs? Turret sections. Yeah, this game's big addition is mini-games. Oh, these feel like the developers listed every bad part of 2000s gaming and made mini-games based on them. Quick time events, a lazy version of rhythm games, and as I said, turret sections, the reason for my crippling depression. Outside of these, the game is a decent adaptation of Underground 2, other than the music, which sounds like it's being played through a racist 10-year-old's Xbox mic. So, the normal gameplay has no inherently bad design, but the other GBA entries just have more going on. Speaking of which, number 19, Underground on Game Boy Advance. Someone, at some point in time, looked at the Tony Hawk games and thought, you know what that needs? A health bar. Yeah, this game introduces RPG elements to the series, which sounds much cooler than it is. You lose health every time you bail, and replenish it by buying food and drink, which, by the law of skateboarding, must feature product placement. If your health reaches 0, you fucking die! So all that adds to the game is an annoying new way to fail missions, although it does add incentive to wear protection, so considering I was never meant to be, this is a message my parents appreciate. There's also a clock now, but all that does is change things visually and add a smart ass way to do time challenges. You no longer get a high score in 1 minute, but a high score by midnight. Whoa, this is a new level of, yeah, you can copy my homework, just change it up a bit. But outside of this, the game does a good job bringing the underground structure to the small screen. Interestingly though, the story, characters and even locations have a lot of differences, which I liked because this means it's essentially a reinterpretation of the underground concept, giving it a distinct identity beyond discount version of the main game. This also did classic mode before Neversoft did with Underground 2 the next year. So yeah, despite getting lost in its ambition sometimes, this is a solid package. Number 18, Pro Skater 2 on Game Boy Advance. Someone, at some point in time, looked at the Tony Hawk games and thought, you know what that needs? a faithful GBA adaptation that perfectly emulates the controls and level design of the main versions. Even Peter is here, great idea man. However, it's not higher on this list because due to the isometric view, there's a lot of perspective issues. For example, the camera feels too zoomed in, so you can't see where you're going sometimes, and there's instances where it looks like you're lined up with an object but then just fly past it. So, unless you want to take blind playthrough of Pro Skater 2 too literally, there's not much reason to play this nowadays, but if you do, you will have a lot of fun. Don't worry Tony, nothing can ruin that glorious face of yours. Still better than Skate Jam. Number 17, Pro Skater 4 on Game Boy Advance. Like the console versions, the GBA version of Pro Skater 4 drops the time limit of the previous entries. I love this on consoles because it allows the exploration element of the series to shine. That's the case here too, but as I said, navigation in the GBA entries is a lot less fun because of the camera and perspective issues, so it didn't work as well for me here. Despite this, I still had a lot of fun with this game because the levels are way bigger and intricate, the moveset is much deeper, and even with its frustrations, that dynamic of roaming the world at your leisure, spotting a collectible and on the spot, figuring out how to reach it, still provided a ton of great problem solving moments, including in the missions where you'd often have to do that while timed, thus providing a great balance between the fast pace of the original formula and the explorative nature of Free Skate. Number 16, Pro Skater 3 on Game Boy Advance. My thoughts on this are near identical to Pro Skater 2. What pushes this higher though is the fact that levels are now altered to work better on the Advance. For example, they have a more open design than the console counterparts, which helps alleviate the navigation issues the camera causes because you have more space to plan ahead. I mean, you could have just pulled the camera out slightly and this doesn't actually fix the perspective issues, but it is an improvement. The rest of the GBA games after this do this too, however I feel this did the best job adapting the layouts to work better in this format without losing too much of that brilliant Neversoft design. I also like how this game does more to have its own identity without losing its focus like Underground does. For example, levels like Airport have new areas, and every time you beat the game with a new skater, the secret level, the zone, gains new objects and areas, very much like American Wasteland but done years earlier, and in a way that adds replay value that the console version of Pro Skater 3 doesn't have. You combine this with the addition of Creator Skater, NPCs in the world, and the fact that the character models no longer resemble my grandfather, you know, the dead one, and you have, in my eyes, the best skateboarding game on the Game Boy. Number 15, American Skateland. This is a discount version of American Wasteland for Nintendo DS. It features many of the same levels and ideas but altered for the DS's hardware. Sections cut, no open world, not as many tricks. They also cut over 350 miles from the US map because now Alcatraz is in Los Angeles apparently. Despite this, Skateland still adapts the gameplay of the console entries really well. The fluid controls, tight level design, simple but varied goals, they're all here. It also adds some fun customization unique to the DS, like the ability to draw your own graphics and record your voice, to play every time you hit a special trick or bail.
Oh shit. For fuck's sake.
So yeah, it's just a faithful adaptation of the familiar formula, so if you've ever wanted to play Tony Hawk with a slightly worse controller, American Skateland is a great starting point. Number 14, Proving Ground on Nintendo DS. This is everything I just said for American Skateland, but for Proving Ground. Looking at other reviews, the 5 other people who played these seem to prefer Skateland. However, I prefer this because thanks to every task and difficulty tiers, this game offered the challenge I felt was missing from Skateland. Not always though. Look how close these skate letters are in classic mode. Are you serious? If I were to use the urinals in the developer's studio, they'd hold my dick for me because they think I can't do it myself. Number 13, Project 8 on PSP. Like the other past gen versions, Project 8 on PSP is a shitty port of the main game. Worse physics, no open world, downgraded design, so why the hell does it get its own spot on this list? Well, for some reason, this version got an exclusive classic mode that easily offers as much replay value as the main story. It's filled with old levels and even has multiple difficulties, with unique and actually challenging objectives for each, thus adding new layers to the old formula. Why in Satan's glorious name is this only on the PSP? Why does the system that unironically has Hannah Montana rock out the show in its library get this, but the console with Grand Theft Auto San Andreas get Downhill Jam? Number 12, American Wasteland. Alright, let's go. Let's get through these tutorials then begin our journey. Alright, the second level. This is where the adventure really begins. The halfway point of the game, where the challenge ramps up and the player's abilities are... Wow, these missions are not as fun as I remember, but oh, this bitch wants to go? Ooh, we have an arch nemesis now. This could be really cool.
Watch and learn.
Oh, come on!
Naked ladies are nice.
This is one of the most divisive entries of the series, and unfortunately, I'm on the critical side. On top of the linear and uninspired missions, this game's biggest issue is I feel it just doesn't do anything better than the other Neversoft titles. The story-driven campaign is done better in Underground, the game's big selling point, its seamless open world, is done better in Project 8 because there's actually some variety in its locales and level layouts versus this game which has as much diversity as a KKK meeting. Even the open-ended mission design is done worse than every other entry here, because in Pro Skater 4 for example, you just have to do 8 goals across all the levels you've unlocked to reach the next stage, so you only have to do the missions you enjoy most, versus here where you'll constantly run into scenarios where you need to meet a requirement like getting X amount of money, forcing you to do most of the side missions anyway, thus removing the player choice that makes every other Neversoft title click. However, there's a reason it's a fan favourite online, because there's still a lot of fun to be had here. It has the deepest moveset of the series, I can bend my knees slightly more while ollieing now, whoa! And the characters and dialogue are the corniest shit I've ever seen, which I mean in the best way possible. Everyone says noob unironically, Mindy is a sassy rock chick, but actually one of the most fleshed out and memorable characters of the series, and there's a man who's constantly haunted by his past, but deep down has a heart of gold because he lets these skate punks crash at his place. So, despite the missions and levels not clicking for me, I totally understand why some people love this game, because it's without a doubt one of the most charming entries of the franchise. Number 11, Proving Ground. Proving Ground is the series' biggest attempt at a more grounded experience, and it pulls this off with mixed results. On the one hand, I love the rigger mode, which allows you to put objects in the world on the fly. To clarify there, I said rigger with an R. Up to this point, the series had always been about learning the level design and using that knowledge mixed with your knowledge of the moveset to build combos and collect items. So this is great because it makes the gameplay more dynamic and allows you to approach tasks in a completely personalized way. Rather than getting a collectible by finding a secret way up, you can now do it by launching off a ramp you put down, or by going up a quarter pipe you put down, or even by leveling up, unlocking the ability to climb poles and then coming back and getting it that way. It also continues Project 8's fantastic progression system. I'll break that down when we get to that game, but in short, you do missions while talking to people, but you also find impromptu challenges in the world, and all of these contribute to your progress. Many of these have multiple difficulty tiers, thus allowing the devs to include more elaborate goals and giving incentive to replay missions. All of this comes together to create an incredibly individualized experience. You can play this completely your own way, at completely your own pace. This is ironic, because one of my biggest issues with this game is that it has no personality. Although maybe that's a good thing. The environments are so grey and bland. I'd much rather watch Bam Majura fuck a horse or whatever weird shit Underground 2 is going on than the stuff in this game, where people just kinda tell you to do things, congratulate you on doing things, and occasionally say yo and dude, which no, does not count as personality. Also, because of this realism approach, there's a ton of missions where you'll do something which will be crazy and real life and the game treats as such, but means nothing because 1 minute ago in the open world I just did a 50 trick combo across 12 buildings. Overall though, I really like this game. It encapsulates the freedom and creativity the series was built on, and while it never pushes it to anything fresh, it's a solid end to the Neversoft era, and anyone who disagrees with me on that is, well I'm a little bitch, so yeah, go ahead. Number 10, Pro Skater. Pro Skater introduced what is, to this day, one of the most flawless gameplay loops of all time, because it challenges the player regardless of whether they're a beginner or expert. For beginners, it works because of a strong element of discovery, finding the collectibles, then figuring out how to use the environment to get to them, learning the environment, so you can figure out how to connect as many combo lines as possible, learning the nuances of every trick and how you can use that to build the aforementioned combo lines, thus making you pay attention to the level design on a deeper level than then use critical thinking to apply that to your skill set. Then, once you've perfected this, the challenge evolves to where you now utilise this knowledge to optimise your performance, figuring out the fastest way to reach a collectible, how to segue that into a good combo line, when to fit in the best tricks and how to do that without losing your momentum. However, this reliance on the environment is why I prefer many of the sequels. Their additions like the manual and revert allow you to create completely original sequences, versus this game where you are generally restricted to dev design combo lines. Also, the controls are really janky compared to the other games. Even then though, this game still holds up incredibly well on its own merits, with its dynamic challenge and clever design philosophies remaining benchmarks of the industry. I think this is the longest I've ever gone without making a joke. This game is so good, it's upgraded me from bad comedian to subpar analyst. Number 9. Project 8. This game is a perfect combination of Pro Skater 4 and Underground 2 because it has Pro Skater 4's talk to people to start missions at your own pace structure, but it also has tasks you can find in the open world and complete immediately like Underground 2. All of these, including gaps even, contribute to increasing your rank. This gives it one of my favourite progression systems of the series because you're always rewarded regardless of your playstyle. Just want to explore the world, find gaps and do combo lines? You're rewarded for doing that. Want a more traditional mission-based campaign? It's here to do whenever you want. Plus, unlike Proving Ground where you work towards big milestones, this game features constant advancements, a small difference that actually makes this game feel much better paced. On top of this, every mission can be completed at different difficulty tiers. This not only adds to your freedom to approach everything however you wish, I personally always eye the sick challenges, and then once I've read them do the easy ones, but it also adds replay value because you now have incentive to redo missions. Although, that would mean pressing X to shag dad's balls more than once, so no, I'm good. Number 8. Pro Skater 2.
After the success of Pro Skater 1, Activision ordered for more of the fun. A sequel was born and yo, holy fuck, I would like the developers fuck my mom, yeah, that's amazing. They expanded it all, they added door menu walls so you can balance your board. Landing on the floor, no one can damage your score. They drastically overhauled what you could do for your fall. No longer limited to the dev design lines. Can now spin and track whole landfalls if you try. Speaking of this, they're so densely aligned, so much depth you will find in the perpetual lines. This is emphasized by the upgraded goals. They've made the ball more creative than before, so you pay attention to the layouts and walls. You give them more incentive to play and explore. So in conclusion, this is a proven classic. It improved on the master, the first one's magic. And oh shit, the soundtrack, that's fantastic. I'm paying my respect to our motherfucking cat, cause my dick's out for this radio. Turn that shit up. My dick's out. This is amazing, yo. Demonetization. My dick's out for this radio. My dick's out.
I'll do the rest of this like a 2000s rock singer. Ready?
I do it all for you. The shove it and the mute. Cause baby, I love you. Pro Skater 2. Pro Skater 2. Yeah.
Number 7. Pro Skater 2X. No, shut up. Pro Skater 2X is a remaster of Pro Skater 1 and 2 for the Xbox, and a really faithful one at that. The most notable thing about this game though is its new levels. First, there's Skylines, which you'll love if 1, you're claustrophobic, and 2, absolutely hate yourself, because every inch of this level has an object in it. Trash everywhere, no flow, and oh hey, what a great time for falling off the level to return to the series. This is fun! Fortunately, the developers learned from this with Club, a level that has nothing to skate at all. Then there's Subway. It doesn't have too many objects.
Yeah?
It doesn't have too few objects.
Yeah?
But has some of the worst level design of the series.
Oh, come on!
Construction site is a pain in the ass because it's easy to fall off the structure, so you constantly have to go back up it to get to the only part of the level with actual things to skate, and Skate Park is a solid level, which later appears as part of a much bigger level in Underground, thus rendering it mute. So yeah, the new levels suck. At the end of the day though, you're playing this for the remaster of the first two games, and considering the perfect emulation of the original mechanics, much better graphics, and the fact that you can now play Pro Skater with Pro Skater 2's improvements, like the manual, this is, without a doubt, the definitive way to play Pro Skater 1 and 2. Number 6. Pro Skater 3. Pro Skater 3 used the new console's increased power to expand on everything that made the first two games special. The worlds are bigger, more intricate, and more weird, hence making the exploration more satisfying and the combo lines more diverse. The physics feature more nuance, so the game's more dynamic because there's more ways to play off the environment and build or lose momentum. And of course, there's the revert, which grants even further player creativity as you can now include vert tricks in your combo without them being the end of your combo. It is, simply put, the perfect sequel, as it pushes the original formula to its full potential. I think I also just appreciate it because after the million versions of Pro Skater 1 and 2 we've seen, it's nice to finally move on to that third entry. Anyway, number 5. Ah shit. Pro Skater 1 and 2 is, say it with me now, a remake of the first two Pro Skater games. This is my favourite version because it brings back tricks from future installments like the revert and wall plant, so the skating has more depth and the levels are opened up to more player creativity. I also love the new challenges. There's over 700, so these add a lot of replay value and add purpose to modes like Free Skate and Creator Park because you can do them in those too, hence transforming features originally reliant on making your own fun. Although, I will call Chris Brown a respectable person before I get 10,000 lip tricks. Seriously, who made this? And, well, that's it. What else do you want me to say about Pro Skater 1 and 2 at this point? You want an in-depth analysis of the texture of Skate Street's concrete? Go watch Joseph Anderson. But yeah, you combine that with the upgraded creation suite, quality of life changes, and the fact that there's now a cat in Warehouse, and this is the actual, definitive way to play Pro Skater 1 and 2. For now, at least. Number 4. Pro Skater 4. Pro Skater 4 drops the time limit of the first three games, which allows the player choice and exploration elements of the gameplay to thrive. This is especially so because of the game's progression system. You unlock levels by completing a set number of goals. You don't have to do all the goals, just the ones you enjoy, at a pace entirely dictated by you. On top of that, you also get money to spend on additional levels, characters, cheats, and more, which you earn from both missions and exploring the world. This means, regardless of what you want to do, there's always a sense of incentive and purpose. It's a perfect evolution of the original formula's open and environment focused design respectively. Also, you play baseball with a ghost, save a guy from being killed by seals, and see, like a lot of animal sex. I was gonna write a whole thing about how these moments are brilliant because they take the carefree mantra of skate culture, crank it up to 11 and combine it with a signature and Neversoft humour to give the game a personality that's more distinct than its predecessors, but still authentic to skate culture like them, but then I realised, no, this is just a guy fucking a goat. Number 3, Underground 2. I'm expecting this to be the most controversial ranking, because a lot of people feel this game goes overboard with its crass writing, and I agree it's this game's big flaw. The final joke of the game, the punchline the entire adventure has been building to, is someone having their pants pulled down. I'm sure hiring a 4-year-old as the head writer was revolutionary in 2004, but by today's standards it's just a bit shit. However, everything else about this game is outstanding. The controls and engine are the best in the series, featuring the tightest and most responsive tricks and physics. The World Tour theme allows for diverse environments and creative level design. Underground's weird vehicle sections have been evolved such that they now play similarly to the regular gameplay, so you still have the variety these provide, but it's integrated in a more seamless way. The new classic mode captures everything that made the first three Pro Skaters so addictive, while also having that dynamic the remasters have, where we get to revisit old levels with new moves. Shrek. This game's biggest achievement though is how it nails that player choice. Unlike many of the games from Pro Skater 4 onward where you start a task by talking to someone, most of the objectives here are just in the open world and can be done without any sort of initiation. This means you have the freedom and player dictated pace of the later games, but the incentive for exploration and the seamless level objective integration of the original formula. Across the board, Underground 2 is a microcosm of what makes this series special for me, and even with its fatal flaw of Bam Margera's existence, I'll never understand the hate it seems to get. Thus, how do you improve on that? Well, number 2, Underground 2 Remix. Remix is the PSP port of Underground 2, and just like fucking Project 8 on PSP, features a bunch of exclusive content. More levels, more characters, more Bam Majura, fuck go back. Its biggest addition though is the branching paths. Still, no. In both story and classic mode, when you unlock the next stage, you now get 2 levels to choose from, and completing the objectives of either allows you to move on. Very much like Pro Skater 4, but even better, because you only have to complete one. This adds even more player choice to the game, because if you don't feel like killing Germans by derailing a train, then you can just battle Godzilla instead. Video games. I don't know what kinky shit Sony were doing to get the PSP all of this, but I'm glad they did it, because in terms of content, this is the definitive skateboarding game. 19 great levels, 80 varied characters, all with the most refined skating and an experience molded heavily by the player. Incredible. Number 1. Underground. Tony Hawk's Underground fucked my girlfriend, but it's so good, I don't even mind. The levels are massive, yet despite this, the most intricately designed of the series, with porch rims, high wires and rails leading into each other for what feels like forever, leading to combo lines with so much depth and creativity. There's also a stronger sense of verticality, because due to the off-board feature, you're able to reach higher areas much easier, thus allowing Neversoft to perfect the more well-rounded design we saw in Pro Skater 4. The mission structure, where you don't have to do every mission to advance, also finds the perfect balance for one of the reoccurring points of this video, player choice. There's enough missions to offer a good selection, but not too many such that they clearly start reaching for ideas, such as the compelling Odyssey in Underground 2 where you grind 4 benches. But of course, the most distinct aspect of Underground is its story. Neversoft president Joel Jewett, if that is your real name, described Underground as an adventure game, and I think he's completely on point. Running away from thugs and jumping onto a train to New York, competing in global competitions for sponsorships, being betrayed by the biggest bitch in the universe, Eric Sparrow. It's a journey, and one that adds an extra layer of progression not there in any other title. That's done well, at least. You're not just getting a high score for the millionth time, you're getting a high score because 50 Cent is watching, which immediately makes it more interesting, because if this goes well, it can mean your character achieves the dream of everyone who lives in New Jersey. The ability to leave New Jersey. You combine all this with the deep character creator and the fact that you can basically make your own game with Creator Goal, and you have not only my favourite Tony Hawk game, but one of my favourite games of all time. The peak of a series that indeed defined a generation. This franchise is always considered authentic to skate culture, some say because of its faithful tricks, others because of its soundtracks that perfectly capture its spirit. For me, it's because the design philosophies directly mirror the philosophies of the sport, the creativity being captured in the ability to approach things as you see fit, the freedom being captured with this encouragement of exploration, the individuality echoing through everything. That's why it transcended entertainment and revolutionized the early 2000s, why it's one of the greatest examples of the profound positive impact gaming has had on the world, why no matter how many motion controls, snowboarding levels or fucking slam buttons make their way into the franchise, the series is cemented as one of the gaming industry's crowning achievements. Also, we made it the whole video without mentioning skate. Yeah. Oh!